What's up, guys? Got all the old suspension off the WRX. Just getting ready to set up the preload ride height on the Fortunautos before we install them. And to do that, got the boss man coming in to give us a little rundown on his tips and tricks as far as presetting preload and presetting ride heights. So let's get into it. All right, guys, like I said, I got boss man in the house here to give us the rundown on how to adjust and how to preset preload and ride height.
Yeah, so okay. Since we've done it so many times, we do a lot of Subaru WRX, STIs, Evos, pretty much whatever you can throw at us. We've done a lot of coilover installation. One of our favorites are Fortunautos.
So what model is this? What do we got here?
This is a 500 series. Okay. Fortunautos with pretty much, I think it's a Gen 8, I believe. On our race car, we personally have the Gen 5. Which is it works great. This
no
one,
major differences between 5s and 8s?
I guess difference maybe just the bearings inside, maybe the seals, but it's still flow digressive shock and this.
So do these numbers mean anything here that you're looking at?
Yeah. So right now, 8, that's pretty much their spring rates, I believe.
So these are the rears here.
So it's all 8 kg all around. 178. That's pretty much the length of the spring.
Right.
Typically, this will be a 7-inch long spring, and in order for before you install these, or actually before you even set your height, you want to make sure that the preload is set. So it's pretty simple. Make sure that when you get your coilovers, and mostly say Fortune Auto will have these pretty much assembled but not preloaded. That way, it makes you, obviously responsible with all the setup on your car on the coilovers. But right now we have to set the correct preload, and on their manual they said that pretty much this is an industry standard preload. You gotta, for example, if the spring is 7-inch long spring, you gotta compress it a quarter of an inch, or at least 5 millimeters.
Okay.
So which is pretty easy. Let's get the tools here.
So preload is this adjustment, the spring, how much weight is essentially preloaded onto the spring?
Yeah, you just pretty much making it spring shorter. If I do it a much more basic, way of describing it. But the reason is that way the spring, it's already preloaded, and the spring sits pretty much on a desired length, and it's not
bouncing around.
Because if, say, for example, if you install this not preloaded, right, the spring will be really loose. So typically for the front, you just want a quarter-inch preload. So for example, this is a 7-inch long spring. You just get your tool, or you can even do it by hand, really. Pretty much compress it slightly. You can't really go all the way. So, and we do get a lot of customers like that. Say they bring their cars, yeah, we installed our BCs or whatnot, or stands, coilovers, but what happened? Either the spring's not preloaded, or it's too much preloaded, over an inch, because I've seen that happen, or the spring wasn't preloaded and they just lower it from the spring, not on the shock body. But see, that's the reason why you buy coilovers, because the adjustability of the shock. So right now, let's just kind of measure this from the end, each end. It's right there, 6 3/4. You can see from right here, and then that's pretty much 3/4, and that's all you need. I mean, it's not going to be super compressed. You know, it's just like just right. And then pretty much, and you obviously you be able to like, you know, spin the spring and then lock the adjuster in place. And that's a good thing about the newer generation Fortunatos. They use Allen.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't usually see the Allen lock.
Yeah, so some coilovers just like just two of these, you know, the two collars,
Right,
and,
right.
and you just lock it together. Pretty much like now, you know, obviously Fortunato does it like this. But back in the days, like, you know, obviously Ground Control started, you know, that's how they use it. But I don't know why a lot of companies, they just use two collars and then just lock it.
Right.
But this is much more easier to do. Yeah, and then, you know, just like lock it in place. And then on the height, I mean, some guys, they just like kind of like put this side by side, but it's also trial and error. So, and since that we've done it so many times, I pretty much know where to set the coilovers. And if it's still like high, pretty much we have our own technique here, horsepower. So
Can't give them the secret sauce.
yeah, so I'm gonna have Adam like continue. I'm just gonna set the preload on the front, and then I'm just gonna go back here also on the rear. So on the rear coilovers, same thing. It needs some preload, but it doesn't need that much preload. The reason why, because like on the rear springs, you want the car to squat, and that's like normal. Front wheel drive, all wheel drive, rear wheel drive, you know, forward motion, the car will squat. And plus the rear doesn't have that much like doesn't have weight. The rear doesn't have that much weight compared to the front. So the way to pretty much like let's see, I'm pretty sure this is like slightly set already, but let me just make sure that it's just like a little bit of like preload. It doesn't take that much for the rear. Let's loosen this up again. And you gotta do it like that. I know some guys, they adjust the rear, they preload it a lot, like maybe same thing as the front, but that kind of disrupt, I'd say, like weight transfer.
Right.
So, like say something like this, you know, it's like 7-inch spring. Normally it would be like 1/8 of an inch or like less than 5 millimeter. It's actually it's at 7 right now. What I do on the rear, I just like slightly just like load it that way. It doesn't, you know, move around. Like just slightly, maybe like a full turn. Let's see. I think that should be fine. And that's the idea. Like pretty much like you want that weight transfer in the back. That's where your traction comes from too. So
and of course, these are all just presets, right? I mean, this is not an end result. You can never really be positive.
no, so yeah, so pretty much like each coilover companies will have different like procedures, but majority it'll be like, you know, this is how you tune it, you know, especially on street cars, even on race cars too. Pretty basic, you know. But also one thing I would want to point out is like spring rates. A lot of guys, you know, go crazy on spring rates. So if you want to have a good handling car, pretty much like don't go crazy on spring rates. You can just like pretty much check on the manufacturer. Say Fortunato, they pretty much like do a good job on like selecting spring rates for the application. Normally on like say WRX or even FRS, it'd be like an 8K front or 8K all around. You can do 10K front, maybe 8K rear, but that's for like a heavy track usage. Anything like above 8K, like say 10, 12, that's pretty high. Front wheel drive cars will probably want at least around 10K, 12, probably the max. I know some Hondas run like really heavier spring rates in the front. for street and track. There's some guys, they do heavy spring rates on the back for drag cars because like they don't want, especially front-wheel drive cars, they don't want too much weight transfer. They want to put weight in the front. So like I said, different, you know, type of like driving, different type of motorsports for a car, different type of suspension setup. So like I said, you know, if you guys have any questions with like suspension tuning, let us know, and then we can pretty much like point you to the right direction.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, Karlo. So curious if any of you guys can put a guess out there is what spring rate Fortunatos are on the S13. So drop a comment.
Yeah.
We know. Do you?
Yeah. I know, and it's pretty like mild setup.
Yeah. Right on. Thanks, Karlo.
All right, no problem, dude.